receive the redemption they deserve. This is the story of both Ashley Riot and Yasumi Matsuno, one in Tokyo and the other in Leamond, one wielding the pen and the other the sword, both desperately deserving of the acclamation that time and distance have stripped away. This is a lengthy Vagrant Story retrospective, and now the slowest dance can begin. It may be a YouTube retrospective cliché, but in order to properly fathom both the creation of Vagrant Story and the events that led to Matsuno's departure from frontline development, we need to understand him as a person, and that requires turning back the clock to 1965. Yasumi Matsuno was born to a middle-class family in rural Japan, and from a young age he'd been singularly obsessed with storytelling. He'd spend hours devouring every comic and novel he could get his hands on, watching and rewatching movies that his parents brought home, and indulging in his favourite pastime, making dioramas of battlefields with history books borrowed from the local library. This powerful imagination meant that when he discovered his first arcade in the late 1970s, he immediately fell in love with the world of video games, and spent hours destroying aliens and space invaders and piloting starships in Xevious. Now this is where I'd usually tell you that this passion caused him to head off and study computer science before joining a big Japanese developer, but that is surprisingly not the way this story goes. Matsuno loved playing games and writing stories, but it was very much a hobby, and at the age of 18, a writer, but it proved much harder than he'd imagined, and for most of the 1980s, Matsuno worked at a big news corporation, where he produced articles about international politics. It was deeply unsatisfying stuff, and he found himself increasingly turning to video games for escapism, spending most of his nights exploring the worlds of Dragon Quest and